All right, what is up, everybody? It's your boy Hoov. We are here live for no pun intended this Thursday evening. I know most of you guys are probably checking out the game right now over on Amazon. But if you're not, come over, hang out with us because we got a great episode tonight. I got my guy, my trade block co-host in the flesh once again tonight. I got Joel at the Joel Wirth. How you doing tonight, Joel?
Good. Jake Bauers just hit a homer. Brewers are up 1-0 in the seventh. Let's go.
I wish I could be into it right now. We talked about it a little bit on the show on Tuesday, and being a Brewers fan is just so hit or miss because I want to be into it, but I haven't been following this whole season, so I feel like I'd be a little bit bandwagon to jump on right now. But I'm hopeful.
It's all good, baby.
If they can get to next round, I might go tailgating. I might do it. So, but
we're going back to back.
But we're not alone, baby. All right. We also have a wonderful guest tonight. We got our guy, Brandon. Brandon, how you doing tonight?
I'm great. I'm doing great. So I actually picked the Mets to win. So that's not great for me, but I'm happy for you guys.
You know, it's hard because the Brewers are one of those franchises that I wish that I could like because there's so many like teams that I can look back in the last like 20 years of my lifetime, well, most of my lifetime at least, is like they've had such great players, and I wish that I was like more into baseball like I was when I was younger to like really get behind these teams. But like you kind of know that the franchise is going to be cheap at the end of the day, so how hopeful can you be about these teams? But I hope that we can at least beat the Mets. I know I got one Mets fan over in New York that I'm friends with, so maybe I'll find his contact and talk to him after this series. But we got a great show. We're going to switch it up. We're going to move from baseball because we're talking football. We're not just going to talk about NFL. We're going to talk about college football tonight with Devy leagues and whatnot. So we got a great show. First up, before we get into college, I feel like we need to address a big elephant in the room that's going on throughout the whole fantasy football landscape and NFL landscape. Rashee Rice's injury. And so first up, what's going on with Rashee Rice's injury and how big of a bummer is it? Like how affected are most of you guys right now in your fantasy leagues? What's your share of Rashee Rice looking like?
I have lots. So yeah, this is not cool. It's weird though, right? I mean, it's like normally they tell you the ACL test that they can do on the field, the manipulation test is almost always like 98, 99% effective and, or accurate and telling you whether you have a torn ACL or not. And now he's apparently walking around the locker room. They went on IR, but they said they won't do an MRI till the swelling comes down. The whole thing is very weird.
Yeah, I only have, I think, Rice in one league. I actually have a lot of Xavier Worthy. From rookie draft. So hopefully that'll be good. I did see something on Twitter earlier, like probably an hour ago, that when how some of the doctors try to speculate on what it could be, and they said it might be some tear in cartilage in the knee. So they said that wasn't great. So I did see that he's going on IR, so they can't really from what I read, they can't really test it yet because of the swelling. So that'll be interesting, but I wouldn't expect to see him for a while. As long as they keep winning as well, they just want to get him back for the playoffs, I would imagine.
It's tough. I mean, I got Rashee Rice in some of my most valuable leagues, and with the injuries right now, I was banking a lot on Rashee Rice. So I'm down bad. I'm hurting, but we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it.
You'll be happy to know in one league where I'm a pretty serious contender that has Rashee Rice, I traded him straight up for JSN on Monday.
Oh, I love you. Oh, that's great. See, I'm totally here for that. But I feel like the answer to everyone's question about like Rashee Rice is maybe it's time. Maybe Travis Kelce is finally about to break out. Maybe he's the person that's going to lead us out of this tight end market crash. And he can just go off maybe for 2 touchdowns this week. There's not many other people he can feed the ball to right now that you feel comfortable, or at least he has that connection with. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco's out, Hollywood Brown's out, Rashee Rice is out. I mean, there's other receivers in the room, but there's no one like Travis Kelce. So it's got to be go back to what was great or it's over. So I hope a lot of you guys weren't crazy impacted by Rashee Rice, but I also at the same time know that if you follow the show, you probably do have a lot of Rashee Rice because we're trying to help you guys win, and Rashee Rice was winning a lot of people leagues. But let's move off of actual NFL talk. Okay, let's talk about the real important stuff. The reason why people come here tonight, talk about college football, because college is what's popping right now. I've been a little bit behind last 2 weeks on college football. I've been working a little bit of overtime, and it's gone into my college football viewing. But I will be up to track pretty soon. But these guys are going to help me out. They're going to get me through it because the general knowledge of what I have can definitely be helped a little bit tonight. So, are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, first up, we thought this was going to be a bad quarterback class, but a few guys have stepped up. Or Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, and Garrett Nussmeier, legit top 10 caliber prospects.
Brandon, tell you what do you think?
Brandon, let's start with Brandon. Brandon's got the good stuff.
I'll start. So, I would say I'm very surprised by Cam Ward's stock going up so much. I wasn't really thinking much of his transferring to Miami, but he's played really great to start the season. This last game, a couple of the things that he kind of does, he kind of turns over the ball, kind of came up a little bit, made that game close against Virginia Tech, but he seems to be trending up. I don't necessarily know if he's a top 10 pick, but he's definitely trending up to possibly a first-round pick. Jalen Milroe, I think, can be a top 10 pick because we just saw a year ago with Anthony Richardson went top 5, and Jalen Milroe has much more experience, is going to have much more success, is a much better passer already. And with Nussmeier, I don't know if he'll even come out. He's playing well, but he doesn't have a ton of experience, so I could see him going back to LSU.
Yeah, I was a big Cam Ward fan when he was at Washington State, but I never thought he was like a pro prospect. He's just seemed like a really fun college player. I mean, Hoov and I are both Badger fans. So last year, Wisconsin went to Washington State, got beat. That was a really fun game, even though it really sucked. But yeah, I mean, Cam Ward's just a really fun player, I never thought he was. I thought he was just a really good college guy, but he's having a terrific season in Miami. So we'll see. It's just. There's so few like elite prospects in this class at quarterback that, I'm really just kind of begging for anything that doesn't turn it into 2022 part 2. So giving us some hope.
To me, it's really hard to say that they're not, especially coming off of this recent draft class. I mean, nobody thought that Bo Nix was going to go at 12, and that was ungodly.
He should not have gone at 12.
Or even Michael Penix going at 8. Like, these are prospects that, knowing that the quarterbacks are moving up, like I didn't have them there. And even being in the draft room, a part of Club Fantasy and Women of Fantasy, being there, everyone was in that boat. So I could definitely see this being something going forward that, teams are going to have to take a shot, especially, seeing a few teams like being desperate for a quarterback. Like, I think we can name at least 5 teams right off the bat that are looking for another quarterback. I mean, I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy, but is Jordan Travis the answer? I don't know about that. So, even like contending teams, like there's some aging quarterbacks out there that, they definitely could be looking for the future. So, I definitely could see them being in the top 10, top 15, for sure, coming off this recent draft class.
All right, Brandon, I'll throw this one out there. In a Devy draft this year, speaking of quarterbacks, I took Isaiah Bond over Carson Beck. The Bond side looks pretty good right now. He's had a really good season in Texas, but I just never thought Carson Beck was an elite or a legit prospect. So the Bond side looks good. Is Carson Beck ever going to make me regret this decision?
Well, funny thing, Carson Beck actually went to my high school. So
really? Awesome.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So I actually never, since he kind of got buried on the depth chart, with Stetson Bennett, being a starter way longer than anyone thought. I didn't think he would really be able to get a chance at Georgia, but he has. And last year he played pretty well, but as people said, the competition wasn't great. I did watch that Alabama game. When they made that comeback at the end, it was a mixed bag. First half didn't really play that well. No one on Georgia did. The second half, he made a lot of good throws, but did throw that interception at the end. I don't know how high like a prospect he is. He has a really strong arm. He's going to have some more games to kind of prove himself. Georgia hasn't had really the best track record quarterback wise since only like Matt Stafford really, and that was double-digit years ago. But Isaiah Bond looks really good too, and that Texas offense is rolling, and they, it's going to keep going. So we saw how Mitchell got drafted in the second round last year after only being there a year. So Bond I believe he has another year after this. So he should have 2 years in that offense. So his stock should definitely be rising.
I can't believe he went to your high school. I'm still on that. I'm sorry. I was listening to what you're saying, but that was going through the back of my mind.
That's crazy, right?
Because this week, JJ Watt was on the Pat McAfee show, and he was wearing a Pewaukee High School sweatshirt, and because that's the high school he went to, and like I was hyped because like that's in our area, and they actually beat us in the playoffs one year. And even though they beat us, I was jacked. So I'm like, that's representation, baby. Represent the Wisconsin small towns. So I was hyped about that. I can't imagine how hyped you are that he actually like went to your high school. So
yeah, shout out cool. Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, Florida.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad pick. I mean, like, with the rise of players like Roma Dunze, like Roma Dunze was getting drafted over players like JJ McCarthy, and I'm a JJ McCarthy guy in fantasy drafts this season. So I don't necessarily hate like doing that this year. So I'm here for that pick too.
And
all right, another.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, and in Devy leagues, I feel like the hit rate on wide receivers is much better than quarterbacks. So, like, in Devy leagues, I like, unless there's a quarterback prospect I really like, I like to kind of stockpile wide receivers because, the likelihood of one of them hitting where you could swing and miss on quarterbacks, because it's kind of a crazy situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. It's that wide receivers it feels like they're just so much safer, right? I mean, some of these guys, I mean, look at Spencer Rattler just going back a few years where he was like the number one Devy prospect, and then ended up having to transfer, stay in school a lot longer than anybody thought he would, and now he's a 4th round pick. So yeah, these quarterbacks can be very, very kind of sketchy things to hang on to in Devy.
Yeah. So we got one more of this section. No, actually, we have plenty more. Actually, next one. I have a long-held theory the NFL will like Drew Aller more than the draft industrial complex. Oh, goodness. The draft industrial complex. That's better. Has he looked better, or is he still on the Will Levis flight path?
So I'm going to go ahead off with this. There's kind of 2 parts to this, and both of them are kind of me hating. First, Will Levis. I think Will Levis is awful. I don't know why everyone liked him. I don't think they watched him play. I don't know if most people know this, but he had to transfer in high school because he couldn't win the starting job. He had to transfer from Penn State because he couldn't win the starting job. Went to Kentucky. A lot of that was, help Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Will Levis is a quarterback that if he has a good system and doesn't have to make very many reads, he's good. He has a strong arm. I just don't. We've seen he throws horrible interceptions. I think his decision making is really bad. So, and then my second hate part is Franklin at Penn State. I think he's a great recruiter. Horrible in-game coach. If he doesn't have a good offensive coordinator, I think that's the thing with Drew Aller. I think he's good, but that offense is back traditional. He's only had 2 300-yard games in his career. He doesn't turn the ball over, which is good. He has 8 touchdowns to 1 interception. They just don't pass the ball a lot. They haven't had great receivers while he's been there. They run the ball a lot, and I remember I'm a Michigan fan, so I remember last year the Penn State Michigan game. He just looked lost, and I don't think he's that bad, but that's the thing. Say Penn State, say they even just make the playoff this year, but like he's not like doesn't like throw for 3,000 yards. He like, throws for like say like 2,800, but has like a good touchdown interception ratio. Will the NFL look at his like tape and be like, you know, he has some things we can coach, but like that won't make him a first rounder. It might be a second rounder, kind of in the same Will Levis kind of situation. So that's what I've always kind of worried about him going to Penn State. But it's not just Penn State. It's pretty much a lot of those Big Ten schools other than Ohio State. They just don't throw the ball consistently enough. The offenses aren't really wide open. So same thing at Michigan. We can barely pass the ball now. It's horrendous to watch. I know how Iowa feels now. So, but yeah, that's kind of my take on Aller. I think he could be good. I just don't know if there's going to be enough for his potential to be drafted high enough for him to really truly get a shot as a starter in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean that's why I kind of compared him to Levis, is that it feels like his draft stock is based on it's gonna be all traits, right? There's really no production there. And the same thing with Levis. Like he wasn't good at Kentucky. Allard just hasn't been great at Penn State, but I think he's got the traits that like the NFL looks for. So I agree with you. I think he could be like an early kind of second round pick. I don't think he's going to get taken in the first, but I could see him kind of following that Will Levis path and just being early second, mid second kind of guy who sits for a year. And then I think I definitely agree with you. I think he's way better than Will Levis, but I think it's kind of a similar prospect profile.
Yeah, I could definitely see it, like him getting an opportunity in the second round. Like he definitely has second round like draft capital at this point, but he does like there's at least like 4 or 5 guys that you can like lock in at starters. And to the point that I was making earlier about teams, like even like contending teams needing quarterbacks, like what's the success rate for second round quarterbacks? Very low. So I feel like they're probably going to be more willing to invest in one of these like top 4, 5 guys, or just wait, because the 2026 draft class is like where the real stars are. So like, I don't know if he might even get a shot. Like he might even slide a little further than Will Levis did, even though he's probably a little bit better, just because like people are more willing to wait till 2026 or just go after one of the top guys in this draft class.
The other thing, and I agree with you here, is that like James Franklin has to take some heat on Allard's development because he made him sit behind Sean Clifford for years. Like Sean Clifford's like 8th year at Penn State, so they could win the Outback Bowl or Gator Bowl or whatever
Yeah.
bowl they won that year. I mean that was just ridiculous. You had like an elite talent when Clifford's a fine college quarterback, but he was never going to take you anywhere. So
For sure.
Franklin's got to take some heat. Franklin's just a terrible, terrible college coach. I mean, you just don't want your offensive guys going to Penn State at least.
It's tough because like he is pretty bad, but even like the Badgers, like our struggles, we have a good head coach and we still struggle offensively. And it's just like what in the Big Ten, like Michigan's having their struggles, but for the longest time it was like Michigan, Ohio State, where like they were the top 2, and now it's like it's back to Ohio State being like the one that actually has an offense, but a lot of it is like the coaching and like them being more willing to do 2-on-1s and defensively and practice. So like it is the division, it is the Big Ten with Penn State, but at the same time that coach is terrible. So I don't see him ever translating in the NFL. It could be something like a Spencer Rattler situation where he like falls to the 3rd, and then people are like, oh, well, he could be the successor to Derek Carr, but is it really like, is he really going to be the guy to succeed to Derek Carr? Probably not. They're probably going to go after someone else. It's almost like Hendon Hooker and the Lions. Like, is Hendon Hooker going to be the successor to Jared Goff? Probably not. But like, they drafted him, you know. And,
especially since Jared Goff is I don't think anyone expected him to get another contract. So
right.
Like, he's extending his time. They're successful. So like, by the time he might be done, Hendon Hooker's rookie contract's probably going to be up. And I wouldn't think that they would. I mean, he was an old prospect anyway. He was like in college 5 or 6 years. So for them, I guess. What round did Hooker get drafted? Was it the third?
I thought it was the third.
Yeah. So I mean, they didn't have to give up a lot, and it was worth a shot. But yeah, I don't see him ever really seeing the field.
But like look at the identity of these players, like Jordan Travis, Hendon Hooker, Spencer Rattler. Like these guys were brought in to be like the successor to these veteran quarterbacks. But even with the draft capital, they're like wash away if they didn't want to actually go with them. That's what we're looking at with Sean Clifford. So I just can't see it. I feel like if he's not wowing anybody, it's hard. It's really hard. Like, I mean, you can wow someone at the draft all you want. Like I thought the world of Joel Milton at the draft, but you know, the chances of him ever being something were very, very slim, just because he's not very good. But you know, he's one
of those. Joe Milton is one of those practice players. Like you see him throwing a mile, and he's like a big guy. But like when it comes to games, the processing isn't as quick, and sometimes he's not as accurate. But like when you see him, like in the preseason games, like I saw Patriot fans like going crazy. I was like, just wait. Like if he ever starts a real game, you're going to see like the whole Joe Milton experience.
But let me get my point across about like why I was actually in on Joe Milton in the first place is because like sure the talent wasn't there, but that's the body that you want as your backup quarterback in the NFL. Like you don't want some, you know, right now Bryce Young, 5'10" quarterback as your backup quarterback. Like if your backup goes down, look at what happened to the Niners. Like they were running with CMC in the NFC Championship because they ran out of quarterbacks. Like you want a big, durable quarterback that can take hits. And Joe Milton, he could take hits. He's not going to wow you, but like, who knows? Maybe he can sustain an offense. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo take a team to the Super Bowl, for God's sakes, you know? So if he could just not be terrible all the time, you know, like maybe he could be something. I don't know. But that was my whole thing. It's like if he ever had an opportunity, he had to roll it out for a while. Why not? You know, but very slim chance. It came down to just body. So, and there was like all you probably have to do is draft him in like the 6th or 7th round. Like you weren't gonna have to invest a lot in Joe Milton versus a 2 or a 3 on someone like Sean Clifford or Jordan Travis, whatever, you know, like the comp, or the kind of player. So it was basically even free at that point. So why not take a shot on a big, strong, durable quarterback like Joe Milton? That was my whole point. So I think that we all kind of feel like he's not going to make his way into the first, and it's hard to really view him as a starting quarterback. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe he is going to get an opportunity, but I don't know. I feel like the 2026 draft class is enough that teams are just more willing to wait. That feels more appropriate. So, but probably the biggest name of the quarterback class this draft season, Shedeur Sanders. So we got a question. Will Shedeur Sanders ever be first one good? ? That's out of pocket. Whoever put that on the show sheet. Worth the extracurriculars that will accompany him to the NFL. Joel, you're in charge of this spreadsheet. You tell the people what you put that.
Like Shedeur Sanders is super talented. There's no question about that, but he's really terrible under pressure. And that's something that's going to be fixed before he can be a starter at the next level. And there's a lot going on with his dad and, you know, saying he's only going to let him go to certain places, blah, blah, blah. So I think there's going to be a lot of off the field concerns that you're going to have to be on board with if you want to draft this guy. So I'm going to get Brandon's take. What do you think?
I kind of wonder how like dialed in or how connected Deion Sanders is with like GMs, coaches, and everything, because I think that'll be a big part of it too. I definitely don't think he's a top 10 pick. I think he could be a first rounder. He has the talent, and I know it's kind of based on judgment, but I kind of look at the PFF stats, and I kind of looked at some of them, and I was actually surprised. I looked at Cam Ward, and he had 8.5% of his throws are like big time throws, which means he fits it, in a small window, like down the field, and 2.5 turnover worthy throws for Cam Ward. And Shador had 7.1 big time throws and only 0.8% turnover worthy throws, which I thought that was going to be way higher. But obviously, that's, like I said, judgment. But still, I'm guessing they're grading everyone by the same amount. But their offensive line is horrible. They haven't really played anyone. The question is, with him just really having to throw it up to Travis Hunter, because Travis Hunter is so good. I know we're about to talk about him too. But I don't know like what that offense is. I can't believe they brought in Pat Shurmur to be the offensive coordinator. I mean, he was horrible like 8 years ago when he was the Browns head coach. So I don't know how inventive it is. It seems like a lot of their offense is because they have some good receivers that have transferred in, that it's just a scramble drill all the time. And, they're just trying to throw it deep, which we saw, like, that's how they beat Baylor with, that throw he made against Baylor. I can't believe he made that throw for the Hail Mary. So he can make some great throws. But with the thing off the field, I think just in some of his comments, I think he's conceited. I think he's, arrogant. I think the whole Sanders family is that way. And it's kind of going to be like, they talked all this stuff about Caleb Williams, being drafted and all the stuff that came with him. And he was much better, he's Heisman Trophy winner. So I got to imagine it'd be the same type of stuff. And there's going to be some teams that are not going to want to deal with Deion. And someone will. I always thought it might be like the Cowboys, but since they just signed Dak, they're not going to do that. I always thought that, like, if things went wrong this year and they didn't sign Dak, then they might, like, a package deal, Deion Sanders and Shador. But I guess that's not going to happen now.
Okay, well, I'll be honest, and I'll say that I feel like the whole Colorado team could work on their public, I don't want to say public perception, but there's sometimes that when you deal with scrutiny, it's just better to be the bigger man and to walk away from a situation. And maybe that does play a factor on, with Coach Prime being like a mentor to them and the way that he carries himself. But Coach Prime also has shown it and proved it. And like, he's walked the walk and done great things for many years to have that kind of mentality that these players might not have lived up to yet, to have that. I think that, they're obviously still like, I'm 25, I'm still growing as a person. I can't say that these people aren't growing and that they're not, 20 years old and that they're not, still young men, because I'm still young. So I don't want to knock them, like, we're all young and we're all dumb. So so the point I'm trying to make though, is that like Shador has come from greatness, and like, there's players, like, that they come from greatness, that they almost get the push, and we know how it goes. And so, like, especially with the talent that Shador has, and you're going up against the rest of this draft class, and like, you're looking at for someone that's actually going to stand out. What is the draft? If anything, it's not just throwing against no coverage and making shock play or making wild plays. That's right up Shador's alley. So if we're looking for someone that's going to be a last minute like riser, and I don't even know if you can really necessarily say it's a riser, because it's Shador Sanders. Like, there's no rising other than Shador Sanders. He's the face of college football right now. Whether people like it or not, he is. And so, like, is he going to move up to the first overall pick, like, because of how great he is at the draft? I can see it, but like, to your point about what teams are going to want to deal with Deion, because I feel like that does play a factor. and he only wants to go to so many teams. Let's look at the top 10 teams right now, and like more than likely that these are going to be one of the teams that are in contention for him towards the top. So Jacksonville 0-4, Miami, New England, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Tennessee, Carolina, Rams, Arizona, Giants. Any of those teams sound like a Shedeur Sanders team?
The first team that I thought of was the Giants because they have Malik Neighbors, and I actually think Sanders and Neighbors would, they kind of have the, the same type of like swagger, type thing. I think I could see them doing that.
I feel like that's a no. That's a no. Like I feel like he doesn't want Shedeur to be over scrutinized. I mean, like that's just what the New York media is going to do. And
but not he wants that market.
Not that he's
wants
soft,
that market.
But yes, he wants that market, but the market follows him wherever he goes. The market followed Deion to Colorado of all places, so like the market is going to follow Shedeur wherever he goes. That's just kind of the like what comes, with being prime son. And so I don't necessarily think, I think that New York, it's not like he like wants to protect him and overprotect him. It's just like New York media is going to overdo it. And Deion's history with the media is not the greatest. So I feel like that's just going to be a no. Like maybe the Rams, maybe he's the successor to Matthew Stafford.
I don't think McVay would want to work with that. Because I think the other thing is, he had his dad as a coach. So I don't know how hard like that is with like Shedeur having to like listen to like, what, getting criticism and everything, because I think Shedeur kind of is. It's kind of a little bit like he just goes out there and, he's super athletic and can kind of, he's a gunslinger. Yes. That's the.
No, hear me out.
Oh,
but the easy answer right now is at 2 without Tua Tagovailoa, it's Miami. I mean, if they just keep tanking with Tua or tanking without Tua and just keep sitting him, there's a good chance that they end up with the first overall pick, and maybe he actually does go first overall. I'm like, there's going to be people out there that say, oh, there's no way that Shedeur goes first. But if Miami's sitting 1, this is the team that got caught trying to recruit Tom Brady and Sean Payton to their team. This is the team that's always in the news for being a little mischievous. So I would be surprised if they were like, all right, we'll work with Deion. Let's get Shedeur in here. It's Miami. That's the media that I feel like Shedeur would actually want to surround himself. He played in Florida last season. So was it Jackson State? Yeah. Was that at Jackson State he was at, I believe?
Yeah, he was at Jackson State, but I don't think that's in Florida.
I thought that was in Florida.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
Okay. I'll double check. Yeah, double check that. But in my opinion, I feel like that would be Miami's media would be more appropriate than like New York and maybe I guess Los Angeles.
It's Mississippi.
Okay, so it's in the southern region. It's in
the south.
So if it's not Atlanta, because they just got Penix, that's an open spot right there with Miami, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So if you're talking about him going to New York for Malik Neighbors, you got 2 right there. So, and Mike McDaniel. I feel like Mike McDaniel could easily coach Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I think that's a good fit. Now that you say that, I just don't know how they feel since they just gave Tua that money. But I mean, it depends on if he comes back this year. I don't know if they have some kind of like voids in the contract or whatever. But that would be interesting, and I do think McDaniels could work with Shedeur. So that is a very good scenario for them.
I think a great solution would be a part of me is just because I think that this fit would be great, but in my heart, I know that this is genuine too, is that we got to look at long-term about Tua and be real about ourselves. And we can hope for the best, but even like seeing someone like Alex Smith come back and I mean, DeMar Hamlin recently, like he's obviously like, he's going to continue playing for a long time, but seeing someone like Alex Smith come back and make that last stance and like show that he can still do it. And that's part of why I feel like Tua wants to come back is like Alex Smith said, is like, you don't want to end your career like that. You want to go out going out. You don't want to like go out being hurt. And so maybe Tua, like there's some kind of meet in the middle that they have, like bringing Tua on to their coaching staff, and he does decide to retire and whatnot and be like an offensive guru to Shedeur. I think that could be a great medium, that he stays around football. He loves football and like he can stay healthy long term. And, you got to protect your brain, and his brain protected, he could have a long career in coaching with the knowledge that he has in football. So I think that could be a great compromise. I hope that I'm wrong and that Tua has a long, healthy career ahead of him. But at the same time, I hope that this is something that he could consider as well. So Miami, Shedeur to Miami, 101. Tank for Shedeur. We in? Joel? You got a stake?
He's not the number one pick. He's not the number one pick. He's not close to the number one pick.
If it's not, okay, but here's the thing.
Let's move on and talk about the guy who is going to be the number one pick.
Okay, if you want to. How many offensive snaps can Travis Hunter reasonably play? Can he play enough on offense to be a startable fantasy wide receiver? Since you're so eager, go ahead.
No, I just wanted. I want to know what Brandon thinks. I just don't know. I mean, he's a better cornerback than wide receiver, I think. I mean, he's an elite cornerback. So I think
I don't know. He's a pretty elite wide receiver too.
I don't mean to kind of disrespect his wide receiver skills, but I think he's an elite cornerback. So, like, how many snaps can he reasonably play? If he's going to play most of his snaps on defense, can he play 20 snaps, 30 snaps in a game? Is that enough to be a startable wide receiver? It's tough to. It's tough to, we talk about guys like Jaden Reed, who, we worry about their snap share, and he's, a guy playing 60% snaps. Can Travis Hunter be a startable wide receiver playing 30, 40%, 50% snaps? Or can he do more than that?
It's so crazy. I don't know how he does it. Because it seems like this year, he did it last year. It seems like he would wear down, but so far in the season, he's not wearing down because, I wish they kept track of these snap share or how many snaps players did further back. But you think like the Champ Baileys, the Charles Woodsons, the Chris Gamble's, at Ohio State, they played strictly defense and then they'd play like 10 or 15 offensive plays. They would make what play here and there. But it's totally different with Travis Hunter. He's doing all this. And if he can go this full season and on both sides of the ball being amazing, I do wonder if a coach would be like, all right, let's try it, or if they'll be like, we're going to pick one side. Well, I mean, if you pick him on off, if you want him to be a receiver, I doubt you're going to play him on defense. But if you're playing on defense, I could see you playing a little receiver. He's such a good receiver though, but he's great corner too. It's so hard to tell because Colorado's defense is so bad, but like people don't score on him usually. So I did see on PFF too, they said when they're thrown towards him, it's only like a 41 rating, NFL quarterback rating. And I think it's crazy on the offensive side. He has a 71% contested catch rate, which is crazy. And he only has one drop. He catches everything that's thrown to him. So if there ever was a player that could, but I don't know they're obviously not going to let him play all the snaps like he's doing in Colorado. But I just don't know. And do you really think he's going to go number one?
I think he is. Yeah. I mean, it's going to depend on who's got the number one pick, right? So obviously we're not going to know that for a few months, but I think he's got to be in the discussion, right?
Yeah, it just depends. If you're going to play him on defense the majority of the time, I've just never seen corner go that high. But I mean, if you're going to play him both ways, then that's a different story. So I guess it depends on how they'll use him. But it is definitely very interesting. And he's the one player on Colorado that doesn't do a lot of talking. And that does seem like he's grounded, he's humble, I remember that story last year when that Colorado State player took that dirty hit on him and he met up with him like the next week and they actually became friends, So I think his off the field, all that stuff. I think he's going to do great in interviews, everything I've heard. So, it's interesting that he's so attached to the Sanders family, but he's a totally different mindset and personality.
Oh, I just thought of something filthy, and I need to share it with everyone because it's so great. Okay, who's to say that Travis Hunter couldn't do the Wan'Dale Robinson role in New York? Like, yes, they need a quarterback, but if Joel's saying that he could go first overall, and he's better than any quarterback in this draft class, and he's worth the draft position, maybe the Giants do that. He's 2 positions in 1. So who's to say that doesn't happen? And then in 2026, they go after Arch Manning and they get another Manning in New York. And it would basically be, Victor Cruz and Mario Manningham, but better, with a Manning.
A lot better. But yeah.
But with a Manning,
Yeah.
So like
that would be interesting.
That would be insane. I'm gonna pray for that tonight, right before bed. Because Travis Hunter maybe in New York. I'm looking at these top 10 teams and once again, who's a contender for Travis Hunter? Jacksonville, Miami, New England, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Tennessee, Carolina, Rams, Arizona, Giants. Jacksonville, I guess they really don't need a wide receiver.
They need a corner. Their corners are horrible. So the Jaguars, but they just
paid Gabe Davis, and even
don't bring that up to me, please. Don't bring.
But that's
I am excited. Brian Thomas Jr. I think is going to be great. So they probably won't do that. I could see maybe the Cardinals pairing him up with Marvin Harrison.
Ooh.
That would be nasty.
Kelly, if you're listening. Brandon's speaking your language over here. Travis Hunter to Arizona. That's not bad.
Well, what
Carolina?
if it's like New England who gets the number 1 pick? They've got Drake May ready to go.
Trade
down. I don't want him to go to New England.
I mean, they could use him both ways.
Oh yeah, they definitely could. I don't want good offensive.
Christian Gonzalez, do they need him? Anymore. With Christian Gonzalez, they don't. I guess.
I mean, they would need the Travis Hunter receiver side more because they need receivers, so they would probably need to go on offense more.
I could see it, but that's more of a Bill move. If they're moving towards the future, I guess Jared Mayo is Jared Leto. I guess Jared Mayo is a product of the Belichick system, so maybe I could see that. That's not terrible. That's realistic. So maybe he goes to New England. That's good. That's not too bad. But let's ask the question: will Hunter be fantasy football's version of Shohei Ohtani in IDP leagues?
So I guess the reason I asked this question is in fantasy baseball, when Shohei Ohtani came over, there was, are you going to use him as a pitcher? Can you use him as a batter? Can you use him as both? I think IDP leagues are going to have to, if the team that Travis Hunter goes to is going to give him significant snaps, if you call him a cornerback and he's getting snaps on offense and you can count those points, he's the most valuable player in the league by far. And it's not even close because cornerbacks in most IDP leagues have zero value, right? That if you play a cornerback, that they almost have zero value, but the good ones never get thrown at, they don't make tackles, stuff like that.
You want the bad ones that get beat all the time so they get tons of tackles.
Exactly. But if you take a good one who's on the field, but who's also playing offense, at a position where the guys just don't score, he becomes basically, relative to his position, the most valuable player in the league. So I think that's something that IDP leagues deep IDP leagues that start cornerback specifically are probably going to have to deal with.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because, corners, they probably get, on the average, probably 3 or 4 tackles a game. So if that's your baseline with him, probably. And then if you put on, if he even just gets 4 or 5 catches for 60 yards a game, that really bumps him up to like one of the top IDP players.
I think we are forgetting about the real Shohei Ohtani of IDP leagues, and that was JJ Watt. Remember JJ Watt, the running back for the Houston Texans, baby? So the original Shohei Ohtani, JJ Watt, Wisconsin native. So, but I could definitely see him being a great value in IDP leagues for sure. Probably the 101 in most IDP leagues, especially in this draft class. Like that in an IDP league in this next draft class, if it was 2026, like that'd be a little tougher. But this draft class for sure, I could see him being like the 101 in IDP leagues. It wasn't he wasn't expected to be, or it wasn't expected to be an elite running back class, but Ashton Junti wasn't necessarily expected to be the clear number one prospect. Does Joel's Emmitt Smith comp hold any water?
Well, I think it was Brugler on Twitter or someone that's like really like connected with the draft said that he reminded him of LaDainian Tomlinson. So that's another good comp, but he's just ridiculous. Obviously, he's not playing in the SEC, but he's still playing against like Power 5 schools, and he's just making them look ridiculous. You know, over 200 yards, all these touchdowns. Yeah, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Him, you know, being the lead running back. You know, most probably thought might be one of the Ohio State backs, but he's definitely, you know, really improved his draft stock, moving all the way up. Do we think he could be a first rounder?
Absolutely.
To Dallas?
I don't know. They didn't draft any running backs this past year, so
Now we're talking.
Maybe they were holding out for him. But I mean, as someone who is old enough to have seen Emmitt Smith like in his prime, like when I was into fantasy football by the time Emmitt Smith started playing, but he looks like Emmitt Smith. You watch him, you look at him, like physically, he's got about the same dimension, size, weight as Emmitt Smith, and he runs very similar to Emmitt Smith. Now, you know, you see these videos on Twitter of him like bouncing and pinballing defenders, and you know that's not necessarily going to translate to the NFL. Sometimes it does, but not necessarily, because you just have much better tacklers at the next level. But I just watch him, and it just looks like Emmitt Smith back in the day. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, first round for sure. We saw. I mean, was he better than Jahmyr Gibbs at Alabama?
I mean, they're different, but
every team is looking for that explosive running back like that, and if Gibbs went 13, 12. Jameson went 12. He went 13, I believe.
I think teams will kind of look at, I guess, how you're going to use them because, you know, the Jaguars drafted Leonard Fournette really early and it didn't really work out. The Falcons had Bijan Robinson, but like they use him really weird. But the Lions really use Jahmyr Gibbs well. So it kind of is like how I guess you just have to have a plan to use the running back if you're going to draft him that high. And I think the Lions do a really good job with that. Obviously, they have a good complement with David Montgomery, but it would be interesting. Yeah, Dallas needs someone to run the ball because they can't run the ball at all.
Travis Hunter to New England, Junti to New York at 10.
That's a possibility.
I mean, that feels pretty appropriate. I couldn't see anyone else in the top 10 currently looking at him. And then maybe the Chargers at 12. But I feel like they'll get better throughout the season and probably make the playoffs. So, or be like right on the outside. So they probably won't even be in contention for him. You got New Orleans, Dallas at 14. Chicago, maybe Chicago, they do it. So, yeah, I could see him being like top 15 for sure. 10, 15. But we do have some questions, actually. We should probably get to those. First one from Smoody. Should I trade away Rico Dowdle and Josh Jacobs for Breece Hall and Gus Edwards?
I'd say no, just because Gus Edwards is a complete zero. And like Brees Hall's not doing much. He's splitting work with Braylon Allen. So
Shut up, Badger.
yeah, former Badger. Just doesn't look like a great fit in that offense right now. With the whole offense just seems a little bit disjointed. Josh Jacobs is just going to get a ton of work in Green Bay. He's going to get a ton of work this week. I just think Dowdle's the better. Jacobs and Brees are probably pretty comparable for this year, and Dowdle's so much better than Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is a complete zero, so I'd rather.
And they're decreasing Zeke's role. It seems like even more. He only gets like a couple touches. So I mean, Dowdle might not be great, but I mean they have to run the ball at least a little. So I mean he's going to get probably 10 to 15 touches a game.
Yeah, I'm totally with it. I would definitely keep Rico Dowdle and Josh Jacobs to the moon right now. Marshawn Lloyd on IR, and there's no real competition there. So got another one from Ronnie. What's good, fellas? Need a flex full PPR. JSN at Giants, Wicks at Rams, Keenan Allen at Carolina, or Justice Hill at Cincinnati. Thanks, fellas. Brandon, where are you leaning? I know where I'm going. So
I think I'm leaning Wicks. I mean, I'm not even a huge fan of Wicks, but I mean, with Christian Watson getting hurt again, I mean, it seems like he's going to get him and Jaden Reed are going to get a lot of targets there. Love seems to like him. I'm guessing that's Keenan. Is that Keenan Allen?
Yeah, Keenan Allen.
Did he play last week?
He did.
Yeah.
He got like three targets or something. Wasn't very much.
Yeah, so I'm not touching. I'm not touching that. I think that Justice Hill thing last week. I don't think he's going to do that every week. I think it's going to be like matchup dependent. I don't know if he does that against Cincinnati. So that's why I went with Wicks.
Yeah, I agree. I would go with Wicks. He got 13 targets last week. I don't think they're going to throw the ball 53 times again, but I think he's going to get a ton of targets. They're going to boat race the Rams. They want to get on track. JSN, we talked about this the other night. He gets the big target share like every other game, and this doesn't seem to be the week that he's going to get it because he got a ton on Monday night. So this feels like a Metcalf and Warren game. So I think it's a good option as a flex. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to lean Wicks just because I think he's got a safer target share.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's got a bad taste in my mouth. I can't do it. Wicks is a viable starter until Christian Watson comes back. And I mean, who knows, even when Christian Watson comes back, if he's a viable starter as well. But JSN, he's got more upside, in my opinion, than Wicks. If we're banking on any upside for any receiver in Green Bay this week, it would be Reed. So I'm just going to take another shot on JSN. I'm not interested in Keenan because Shane Waldron's route tree looks like this. Oh, God, he's so fucking terrible. It makes me want to throw up. And Justice Hill's honestly a viable starter, but probably the same as I would say with Wicks is like he's a good option, but I don't think he has the upside that JSN does.
Just one thing real quick on Wicks is Dobbs missed practice today with a personal matter, and they are not certain that he will be back for Sunday. So just putting that out there. Wicks may be the starter in two receiver sets.
I hope everything's going okay. So if Dobbs doesn't play, then I feel like that would change things a little bit. I mean, that means he probably would be looking at 13 targets again. So what do you guys think about trading Amari Cooper for Shakir and J.K. Dobbins? I would do that in a heartbeat. That was the easiest question. Anyone disagree?
Even if Cooper's going to the Chiefs?
What if he goes, No, I still like Shakir enough. And
Shakir's hurt.
He'll be fine when he comes back.
All right, I'm taking Cooper.
Really?
Yeah.
Just for the trade, just for the option of him being traded.
No, just because I think he's a much better player than Shakir, and I don't think Dobbins is going to make it much longer. So
he definitely Dobbins has definitely like come back to earth a little bit because I saw something on Twitter too saying like usually like after a couple games, they kind of, come back to, wearing a little bit. And I'm still hoping that the Browns come to their senses and start Jameis Winston and put him with Amari Cooper. I mean, there's going to be lots of interceptions, but there's going to be lots of touchdowns. So that's one thing I'm hoping.
The 3 trade candidates for Amari Cooper, in my opinion, would be like Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, like for a playoff run. So I understand the point of doing it, but there's not many, great fantasy options right now. And J.K. Dobbins is one of those options that actually has been putting up decent points. And so when Shakir comes back, I feel like he'll be in that range too. Like there's really nobody standing out in Buffalo that I thought other than Shakir first 3 weeks of the season. So I would probably still do it. Should I do Stroud and Sutton for Burrow and Higgins?
I'd rather have Burrow and Higgins.
Yeah, I personally don't want anything to do with that Broncos offense.
Burrow and Stroud are the same guy, so yeah, I would much rather have Higgins than Sutton.
Yeah, I'd do Burrow and Higgins. I'm trying to acquire Higgins in a few leagues right now. I feel like he's in a good point to buy, so he's probably one of my biggest buy candidates right now. Quick question: if I have Gibbs, Mixon, and HN at running back, and Chase, Neighbors, Reed, Smith, and McLaurin, do I have the depth to trade Reed for Monty for insurance to Gibbs?
Jeez.
I wouldn't do it. I don't know.
If I'm trading Reed, I want more than Montgomery.
Yeah, I'd want like a 2 on top of it.
Yeah, and Smith is hurt, and Neighbors isn't going to play this week. I mean, I know it's just a concussion, so he should be back, but yeah, I don't. And it's not like McLaurin's like going crazy. He's had a better last 2 weeks, which I'm super disappointed in. I thought he was going to have a huge year, which I guess he still could, but he really slow start. Yeah, I would definitely want more than just Monty.
Yeah, I'm okay with moving Reed if you want to sell high, but yeah, if you're going to do that, you need to get more than Montgomery.
For sure. ETN is on my waivers. Do I risk it and pick him up or leave him there?
Who are you dropping to get him?
Yeah, that's a good point. How deep is it? How deep is your league? Is it like the ocean?
I think he's worth having, but yeah, it just depends on if you get a really shallow league and you got to cut a good player to get him, then.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move off of
question.
the NFL and let's get back to the important stuff with college football. All right. How do the players who decided to go back to school instead of entering the draft last year have Emike Mbuka, Travion Henderson at all improve their draft prospect? Does it matter with NIL?
So I think Ibuka needed to because he was hurt a lot last season. So I understand him doing it. Travion, I don't understand. Like he would have been very. No, I understand. I mean, Ohio State's like the whole state of Ohio is going crazy because they lost to Michigan 3 straight years. So that was like the main thing. All the people came back. They said they wanted to win. They wanted to win the national championship. I get it, but he's splitting time with Jokins now. So like I don't think it's improving his draft stock. I think it's hurt. If anything, it's hurting his draft stock because he's playing well. He just doesn't get the ball enough to put up really good numbers.
My earliest mock draft last season, I had him Emike going to the Cowboys at 24, and like now, I don't know. It's definitely dropped in the sense that I view him more as a early second round prospect, in my opinion. So, I would hope that he can get back up to the late first with like some more production this season. But yeah, I'm out on it right now.
I mean, to Brandon's point with Henderson, it's like if you're a running back, you've only got so many bullets in the chamber, right? You've only got so many years. You don't want to really waste one of those years that you can be making NFL level money play in college when you don't have to. When the guy legitimately could have been a back end first rounder, early second rounder this year. I think if there was a team that would have needed a running back. So, I mean, if he would have come out, he would have been the clear number one running back in the class. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks was, but he was coming out the ACL. So I think he would have been an obvious first running back drafted. So,
For sure.
Yeah, I really question that decision.
Trust me, I was so angry because a lot of leagues I needed a running back. I was really banking on him because I had picked 5 or 6. So it worked out perfectly, first running back. And then when he said he was going back, I was like, well, I guess I'm not getting a running back this year because the running back class obviously wasn't as good with. I do like Brooks, but he was coming off that injury, and the Panthers are a little bit of a dumpster fire. So I guess they're looking a little better with Andy Dalton now, which I guess shows Bryce Young was not the pick. I don't know. I mean, I still think I don't think Bryce Young's a bad player. I just think I don't know. I think last year shot most of his confidence, and he obviously isn't seeing the field well because Andy Dalton's throwing the ball all over the place. So
Carolina. Cam Ward to Carolina. Cam 2.0.
Could happen.
I'm here for it. But with Henderson, I was totally in the same boat. I thought that he was going to be the first running back off the board. But, yeah, things are tough this year. I think he was honestly really not worried that he wouldn't be the first running back off the board, but I think he was worried that he wouldn't get the first round draft capital that he wanted. Just because it's tough because even last year he wasn't really standing out in the sense Junti was, to be a top one, certain first rounder for sure. So you probably thought he would just because of the need for running backs that he could creep his way in there. But yeah, I'm not really as blown away this year. Next one, Luther Burden or Ted McMillan. Where would you have landed among the 24 draft class of wide receivers?
So for me, it's Ted McMillan. Now I probably wouldn't have been that way. Probably midway through last year. And for both of them, if they were in last year's class of wide receivers, they would have been behind Neighbors and Harrison for me. So they would have been above Adunze, but that's where I would have had him.
You would have it above Adunze?
Yeah, I would.
I'm below. I would have him right below Adunze, right above Brian Thomas Jr. for me.
Yeah, I'm a huge Adunze guy, so I would have had him. Burton's really kind of not done a whole lot this year, so yeah. I don't think he's really stoked his draft stock, but I liked him a lot coming into the year. But
I think he's another guy that's not on a great or creative offense, and they do a lot of their quarterback play isn't great, so they just try to throw short passes to him. But he might be a guy that just gets drafted based on speed, athleticism. He'll probably kill the combine. But yeah, he hasn't done a whole lot this year.
Yeah, no argument there.
All right, Brandon. My Devy sleeper this year was Kyron Lacey from LSU. How are people not on him? How are people just not on every LSU wide receiver one? I mean, he's had a pretty good year. I don't think he's Malik Neighbors. I don't think he's Brian Thomas Jr., but he's been pretty good. I think he's got a future in the league. He's probably a late first, maybe early second kind of guy. How are people just not on every LSU wide receiver that comes out right now?
I don't know. I mean, watching games, he looks really good. He looks good, and I don't know. It's not like he's not a high profile school. It's LSU. They're on TV all the time. I don't really know. Maybe just because this is his first year being really the main guy. But yeah, that is interesting that he's not. I mean, if he keeps it up, then hopefully he'll get up there a little bit more. But yeah, it is interesting that no one's really talking about it. I agree. But that was a good sleeper for you.
Yeah, I think it was because I saw him play in the obviously a Badger fan, so I saw them. I saw him kind of demolish them last year in the bowl game. Him and Nussmeier. So, yeah, I thought Nussmeier was going to be pretty good. I didn't think he was going to be as good as he's been, but I thought he would be pretty good. And Lacey just looked like a stud in that game. So, I guess maybe if people didn't watch it, because Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. didn't play, so I could see a lot of people just saying, "Oh, we're going to skip this game. We're not going to pay attention." But Lacey looked really good. So yeah, that's how I got onto him. But I just don't see why people don't look at. I mean, you look at the history of the recent history of LSU wide receivers, and it's just, how do you not think this is just a factor? It's the same thing as Ohio State.
I think I'm just more worried about the history of Lacey's than LSU.
He's not fat though.
Yeah. So let's move on to something. You anything else to add to that one? To Kyron Lacey?
No, I don't think so. Did I hear that Eddie Lacy got arrested recently? I feel like I saw something about Eddie Lacy recently.
I didn't hear that.
I mean, he's still really fat. So
yeah, he's at worldwide news. Yeah. Why do we have to wait so long for Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams? It's not fair to us old guys.
All right, just to finish that thought, he got arrested for an extreme DUI.
Ooh, that's
extreme DUI.
Yes, it was in Arizona.
What was he blowing?
A dude that big must have drank a lot to be extremely drunk.
He had a .2.
Well, that's pretty extreme. He shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, I understand the extreme part now. Holy shit, that's crazy.
And he had an open container in his vehicle. So that'll do.
Eddie.
Ridiculous. Okay. So,
all right, sorry.
Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. Thank you for looking that up and clarifying. Good thing he wasn't robbing a bakery or something.
Hey, he might have been on the way to do that, after drinking. So,
all right.
but yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, it sucks for people that want him in the NFL, but it's awesome for people that love college football like I do. Yeah, I've always wondered why. I think the 3-year thing, I guess what was really thought of was there would be some players that would try to leave way before they should, kind of like the NBA with Kwame Brown and people like that. So I think they were trying to do that, but recently there's been players that should have been able to leave. They could play in the NFL, and both of those guys obviously are that good, but then there's some that probably think they're that good and wouldn't make it in the NFL. So I guess that rule kind of saves some players.
Yeah, it just sucks. I mean, I'm probably gonna be dead by the time these guys come out, and by the time they finish their NFL careers, they're gonna be so damn good. But yeah, it just really, I think I agree with your point exactly. It's there are some players that you can, like Jeremiah Smith. That dude's a man. I know he's only 18, but he is a freaking man. He's just like Ryan Williams. He's only 17. He skipped out of his senior year of high school, right? So he could enroll early.
Yeah.
So yeah, with someone like that, I get it. But Jeremiah Smith, the dude is just, he looks like Marvin Harrison Jr. It's crazy. I mean, he's well built. He could survive the NFL. So
right.
I hate that 3-year rule.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I remember Maurice Claret tried to sue the NFL about doing that, and shocker, it didn't work. But yeah, it does suck for some players. I'm sure some people thought the same thing about Braylon Allen, his rookie year when he had all those yards and he was only 17. So
yeah.
For sure. All right, this is the time before we sign off. To all your W players out there, this is the time to get your grievances or your compliments out. Grievances or compliments. Preferably grievances, but we'll take compliments as well. What players are overperforming and underperforming for you? Let me know.
So I guess I'll start. One, I was totally wrong. Evan Stewart was a wide receiver I really liked. Thought going to Oregon, he was going to, be really good and raise his profile. He's probably going to have to come back because, he only has one game with over 30 yards receiving, and they've been having to score a ton of points because their defense is allowing a lot of points. and he's just not very involved. So I don't know what's going on with him. I thought, at Texas A&M, that was the reason he wasn't really blowing up, because I thought he was a really good route runner, in their quarterback situation. But maybe he's just not that good. I don't know.
Yeah, and speaking of Texas A&M, Connor Wegman, just for a guy who looked like one of the elite quarterback prospects coming out a couple of years ago, he doesn't look like he's even a good college quarterback right now. So he's been really disappointing. He's a guy who got in a few Devy leagues that, we talked earlier about quarterbacks who, the danger of holding quarterbacks in Devy, missed basically the entire season last year, and this year just doesn't look very good at all. So he's been a pretty massive disappointment for me.
Yeah. My massive disappointment is going to be the entire Badgers roster. That's mine of the week, and I'm sure that next week it's not going to be very original, because it probably will be the same pick next week as this week. Joel, what about you? Who's your disappointment?
Yeah, I mean,
or compliment. You got it positive too.
They'll probably beat Purdue this week because Purdue's terrible. But yeah, I as a Badger fan, I mean, what we were afraid of with Paul Chryst is happening with Luke Fickell right in front of our eyes, and it's really disappointing.
Don't say that, dude. Don't say
I thought they'd be a lot better too. I think they just keep on because Van Dyke's out for the season, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Not that he was doing great, but they just seem to be like these transfer quarterbacks that come in there. I keep on thinking they're going to be good, and it just I'm very surprised.
Cone. They're all Jack Cone. It's literally rinse, repeat of Jack freaking Cone. And I'm so sick of it, dude. I'm so sick of it.
They're running Braden Locke out there, who has zero ceiling, right? The guy has zero ceiling. He's not good. He has no potential to be good. Just put the freshman or whatever, the mid-hour kid, I think he's a redshirt freshman. Just try it. See what he's got. What are you wasting time with Braden Locke?
Honest to God. Preach, brother. Preach.
I don't want to hijack and make this a Badger show, but it's so
it should be. We should have our own Badger show at this point. Just grievances at that point. But anyone else you guys want to talk about tonight? Get off your chest.
I don't think so. I don't know if he's necessarily exceeding expectations, but Omarion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina, he has 600 yards, and their passing game's horrendous, and he's still getting 100 yards a game. So I think he's playing well, and I think he'll be in the conversation, second or third rounder. He's like you're more of your traditional back, a big bruising back, but still has some speed. So I really like him if he does come out this year.
Hell yeah. Well, Brandon, we appreciate you swinging by Club Fantasy tonight and hanging out with us.
This is awesome, man. Thank you.
I learned a lot. I learned that I am very behind the last 2 weeks. So I need to get up to date, and you guys have helped me out a lot. I think I need to get into my first Devy League. So maybe we need to get a Club Fantasy. I just burped. I hope you guys enjoyed that. A Club Fantasy Devy League out there.
Let's do it.
And then I can get cooked in that as well. But Brandon, I appreciate you swinging by. Let the viewers know where they can find you.
Yeah, on Twitter you can find me at KB3, like on the screen. Write for DLF. You can do a lot at League Winners. Write about the Jags, even though they suck really bad, and hopefully they can beat the Colts this week. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Find that beautiful face at Haye B3 on X. Joel, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. I get to see you.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
For the
Yeah,
next
you can find me at the Joel Wirth on Twitter, and with my friend Hoov here on the Trade Block Show on Tuesday nights, and right here on the Dynasty After Party on Thursdays.
That's right. And you guys can find me at HoovTube on X. You guys can find me obviously here at Club Fantasy on Tuesdays with Joel, breaking down all the Dynasty trades and Dynasty value, or you can find me at Optimus Fantasy. We got another article coming this week of my favorite bets. Got a little preview. Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown. You guys heard it here first. I'm all in on Kelce this week, so make sure you check out the whole article coming soon to optimusfantasy.com. And let's make some money this weekend, baby. I already got the picks locked in. Come join me. But don't bet too much, because Yeah, I only went 6 for 9 last week. Okay, so we haven't gotten 100% yet, but still,
Nice.
thank you. Okay, but thank you guys once again for coming out and hanging out with us tonight and come and joining us in the comments section. We hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful week, and make sure you come and check out all the beautiful and amazing shows that we have here at Club Fantasy. We got them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're here for you. Make sure you come join us this Sunday on X. We will be breaking down all your start sit questions. Joel will be there. I will be there. The whole crew will be there, and we will be helping you through all those decisions, those late decisions. So thank you once again. Have a good night, folks.